Hello and welcome to another episode of T to the Power 4. Tips, tricks, tools, toys, something to make your life at the shell easier. We had seen two episodes. On the first one, I basically laid out what I would like to do and talk about. And last week we just started very gingerly with a couple of tricks for enabling shell commands for ls and color and shell commands for ls and grep. Today we'll do something related but much more useful, customizing a prompt. Also, I've shown you the GitHub repo where a few of you had already posted suggestions and questions. That's great. A link comes again later in the slides. But today then, customizing prompt. Because if you have the bad luck and you're on a system without much of a prompt, you just have something like this. It doesn't say where you are and you can't go anywhere. If you go to your home directory and remember that there's a Git directory, then you're in a Git directory, but where are you now? Nothing to be seen. So something that you may have seen already, but which for those of you who haven't seen, so the way to set that is to set a variable ps1. I think prompt for the shell one. They can also be nested as the second one, but those are details that we don't really need. There are a couple of meta characters that the shell knows. So for example, here for bash, we're using U, H, and W to customize something really simple. And the one that I've been using basically all those years is user add host colon working directory greater than for spacing and a space. So now at least we know what user on which machine in which directory. And if I then go into Git, I wouldn't try to go into Git a second time because there's a Git below a Git. So that's already pretty useful and it's very simple. We're just basically defining one variable and we can do that in a bash RC script. So that was really tip number one. But the second related tip is that here too, we probably want to do color. And the colors are slightly more cumbersome to type than the meta variables giving content here. And so for color, I find it's easiest to use an external prompt generator. If you put a query into Google for shell prompt generator, and I say bash here because we're assuming that we're using the bash shell, then you'll get tutorials, write-ups, and a couple of websites that are mostly drag and drop. One that I liked is this one, bash RC generator, and that's also in the slides, as well as another one that you can use. And for example, what we just had a second ago would just be username, add hostname, colon, working directory, and greater than, as well as a space. So you see we have just about the same here, including, and that's more recent, I've only learned about that maybe in the last year or so, and I don't even use it on my own system. That's basically a meta character for cleaning up the shell prompt after these characters. I haven't needed it, but it doesn't hurt that it's there. Now this one's pretty nifty because if you just click on it, you can then pick a color. So we could now make this orange for the username, purplish for the host name, and then maybe greenish for the directory. Not my preferred colors, but you see how they happen there. And the codes for the colors are always square bracket 033, then the color codes and the resetting. So they're really a little awkward to type if you just do them outright. But if you put them in a shell script so that it's sourced, for example, in your bash RC, you can use them as generated from one of these generators. That's already quite useful. But I figured this time for this show, we could actually do two useful tricks, because besides showing the directory that you're in and the host name that you're on, something I found immensely useful is to also show for Git directory which branch one's in. So you can just copy and paste this from here and put it into a file, or then source that file. So when I was working on that a while back. I just put it in a source file. It's sourced from my other files, but it's just there for resetting. So now I'm back to my default colors. And if then I go into a directory that's a Git repo, it shows me which branch I'm in, and that's actually extremely useful. Do I still have the branch here that I was working on earlier today? Maybe not. There we go. And you know, so oops, not cd, git checkout, back and forth, back to master. That is one that I find really extremely useful because it avoids committing to a branch that you actually don't want to commit to. And all you really have to do for that is copy this entire snippet. This is actually a single line, which you will see if you make the screen wider and wider and wider. And it uses a little shell function pass git branch, which is just defined here. It calls an internal git command we don't use interactively all that much, symbolic ref, and then does some nifty bash text substitution. Don't worry about the details. It's just when we invoke this, as I can show, because it's now source, so it's known at the prompt. What was that again? It was pass git branch. Then it just comes back with exactly the output that's appended into the PS1 definition here at the end. I've included it here as well, but these line breaks, remember, are just here so that it fits on the slide. If you don't want to copy and paste it from the web directory with most PDF clients, you can also directly copy from here. So that one actually is really my my go-to, and with the particular color scheme that I have, I fiddled a little bit till I had these colors nicely. So that is just the one personal touch. That was really the key for today. Colors in the prompt, directory information in the prompt, branch information in the Git repo, also in the prompt. Maybe next week a little bit more on shell and aliases. I haven't quite figured out what we're going to do then. Otherwise, there is the T4 repo where you can file issue tickets. Some are already there. I will be talking about RCPP in just under 3 weeks, so swing by. That'll be an hour and streamed rather than recorded. And that's really all that I have. Again, a couple of links to presentations, my website, other things, and the T4 repository for this series. Thanks, and hopefully see you next week.